Hi, welcome everybody. I'm Ross the Boss, and I want to talk waiver wire with you, cowboy. Welcome to the Waiver Wire Show, the Hub, MFSN. It's going to be a great show tonight. We got some great stuff to talk to you about. I'm excited. You're excited. Everyone is excited. Dan, take it from here. Tell everybody what's going on right now.
Okay, first of all, I just want to say I'm glad you've had your Mountain Dew. You're looking good. Got all excited. So we're going to talk about Cowboys, but I also want to talk about Joshua Kelly, my number one pick from last week. Looking good. What do you think, Andrew?
I was with you on the Joshua Kelly bandwagon. I owned him in one of my leagues, and I know you've got him in the other one.
Did you have him as your number one pick? Because he was my number one pick, and he's looking. You said. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I had him as my number one. I might have had him as my number 2 or 3, but I was definitely all in on Joshua Kelly. I was saying, as I said on last week's show, Austin Eckler's not a bell cow back. He's a pass catching back. He really benefited from playing with Phillip Rivers last year, but they need that between the tackles guy to play the Melvin Gordon role, and they drafted Joshua Kelly to do just that. And he's actually got the 5th most carries of any running back in the NFL so far this season, which is pretty impressive for a rookie running back. So he's definitely here to stay.
Okay, now that's one thing I wanted to say is this goes to show you where you can find gold on the wire. To get a running back who has the 5th most carries in the entire NFL, and he was on the wire last week, and I believe he's still owned in only like 38% of Yahoo leagues.
38% of leagues, and he went to UCLA. Yeah. He's a Pac-12 guy, which is great.
I know. Not only is he only owned in 38%, but he also went to UCLA. I mean, come on.
Can't go wrong.
This guy, you can't go wrong. So people are slow to get on the bandwagon with him for some reason. So I want to remind everybody, in our waiver wire show, as in many waiver wire shows, we're basing it on a 50% and below ownership. So these are people who should be available. Last week, I think we did mention Dallas Goedert because we had our numbers wrong. He's up to like 88% or something like that. But I think he was way over 50 anyway. So we'll be a little more careful about that. Guys, I want to talk quarterbacks first. Who are your top 5 quarterbacks? Let's just start with your number 1. Ross, you start us off.
Listen, I love this guy. I loved him in college, another Pac-12 quarterback. He has the best mustache I've seen in a long time. It's Gardner Minshew. He's unbelievable. I believe he had 3 touchdown passes. Is that correct, Andrew?
Yeah, he's thrown for 3 both weeks so far.
I mean, he's been unbelievable. He's consistent. I might trade. This is serious. I might trade. I have Lamar Jackson in one of my leagues. I have Gardner as my backup. I might trade Lamar, get a big time running back, and start Gardner. I mean, I might do that. We'll see what happens. I mean, I'm convinced this kid is just going to keep on piling these stats. They have no running game. Their running game's a joke. Jacksonville.
Hey! Don't hate on James Robinson. That guy had a great week as well.
Okay, he's good. I'm just teasing. Making sure you're still awake. But my first pick is Gardner Minshew because I just feel that he is just a winner. He reminds me of a young Brett Favre too. He's always being competitive. I love it. So that's my pick, Gardner.
That's a great pick, but it's very bold that you would deal Lamar Jackson for a running back of any kind after the amount of injuries that mounted this weekend. Can you guys believe this?
Well, maybe that's why he has to trade for a running back because his other guys all got hurt, right?
That's true. Did you own Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley?
I did not take either of them. I actually took Lamar Jackson in the first round, but I had the 8th pick in one of my drafts. But long story short, I just think that Gardner's stats are great. I mean, I just feel you should take advantage of it. I think you can get a lot for Lamar Jackson right now. I feel it's a good time.
Well, that's true.
I mean, if
you want to trade, from value from your strength, and you've got Lamar Jackson, you can get almost anybody.
And if Gardner doesn't, if he slows down a little bit, quarterback's always something where you can stream the position, find somebody on the waiver wire. So if you can get a top 10 type of running back for Lamar or something, I think that's a good deal to make. My first pick, I'm going to just, keep banging the drum for Ryan Tannehill until either he gets 50% owned in Yahoo or Ross admits that he's good. Whichever one happens first.
I mean, honestly, I just feel he's having a good 2 weeks. I don't see him.
No, okay. So I gave you a stat
consistent
last week. The stat last week was that Lamar Jackson was the only quarterback that produced more fantasy points than Tannehill from the time he took over last year. Here's another stat for you. Ryan Tannehill for the Titans has 12 starts. He has at least 2 touchdowns in every single one of those starts. He's never had a single bad fantasy performance since he took over that job. They're not a high volume passing attack, but they're an incredibly efficient passing attack.
Yeah, but you have to go to in social situations, and people are going to say, "Who's your starting quarterback?" I'm going to say Ryan Tannehill.
Those elitists in LA are going to hate on him, huh?
No, you're not going to get any love from anybody. People are going to laugh at you. Who? Ryan Tannehill?
Guy from Tennessee? Come on.
Guy who played in Texas?
Well, one thing I do want to say, though, is, one of the ways you can get value on the wire is to get a guy who was owned in a previous situation and didn't thrive. This is an indictment of Miami, isn't it? I mean,
oh yeah, everyone that leaves Miami becomes a fantasy stud. So that's just par for the course, I guess. That was the Adam Gase factor. Now he's taken his magic to the Jets. But I think the sample size is large enough with Tannehill. Last week he did it without A.J. Brown, without his number one guy being healthy, and he still put up the great numbers. So I think we need to stop overthinking this one.
All right, wait, Ross, do you not even have Tannehill in your top 2? Who's your second?
My second is, I said his name last week. I loved him. I'm afraid this week because he lost his running back, but it's Teddy. It's Teddy from Teddy Bridgewater.
Teddy Bridgewater
from Carolina, and Teddy's been very good this year. He's the 2 games. Each game over 300 yards. He's playing great. He's my second guy. I'm not going to take Tannehill. I'm not even without McCaffrey.
No.
McCaffrey.
You've made that very clear. And guys, this is why he's available, because Ross will not pick him up, and there's many people like him.
No,
I don't know why.
You know why? There's a story about Tannehill, and I could tell the quick story if you guys want to hear it. Basically, Tom Brady.
Is this going to keep him from coming on the show?
Yeah, probably. But it's a true fact.
All right. Well, we're going to go for it.
Let me just tell you the story. So Tom Brady in practice, if one of these practice players gets an interception off him, he'll give them like money. Like he'll make them incentive. Like he'll give them stuff.
What did Tannehill do?
So Tannehill does the opposite. If you outshow him in practice and you're a practice player, he'll go crazy on you, and he'll like try to get you cut from the team. I mean, I've heard this from numerous players that played with him in Miami, just so you know. So I'm not making this stuff up.
Maybe this is his secret. Does he do that to the opposing team also?
I don't know what he does.
Cut from the team.
But
I think Tannehill's in the mafia.
I'm not a Tannehill fan. That's all. I'm just.
He seems to be a good leader of that team. I mean, they really overperformed last season. They look great again this year. So
yeah, we'll see what happens.
And again, my usual response to those kind of things you say is just give me the stats. That's what I want.
I know you're a stat guy.
I'm gonna go with he's the stat guy. I'm the strategy guy. I'm terrible with stats. But
okay, who's yours?
My number. Okay, so I have Tannehill first and Minshew second.
I got Minshew
but
second.
My third is Justin Herbert. I think that this guy's going to step in and be a solid performer. And anybody who has Tyrod Taylor starting over them is going to end up starting. I'm sorry, Tyrod. Come on the show, please. That's a terrible lead-in. But Justin Herbert, he played in a kind of pro-style offense. He's the kind of guy who's really underrated. He already performed that way in college, and he stepped in and he did pretty well. He could easily regress, but the reason I have him third, I just think he has an edge over the 2 guys for the next couple weeks. There's my number 4 guy I actually like more than Justin Herbert, though.
Well, I just wanted to say, did you see what Anthony Lynn had to say, though? Because he said that when Tyrod is 100% healthy, he's going to play. And Anthony Lynn's an old-school coach, so and I think he really does still think that team can be a playoff contender this year. So I don't think he's ready
that may be.
to hand over that team to a rookie. So, I don't know if Herbert's going to force
his hand.
I think Herbert will be a good, he'll play at the end of the season when they're out of playoff contention. But as long as they're alive, and and Tyrod, it sounds like it was really a pretty minor thing. It was a little health scare, but I think it's past it now. So he may be getting.
But
that
I'm
job
also,
back.
I think we talked about this after the show last week about who could be the surprise team, the Tennessee Titans of this year. I'm calling the Chargers. I think they're going to.
They have a great defense. I mean, and they got a good running game. So that gets
all they're missing.
I mean, they played Kansas City. They played the world champions unbelievably with their defense. I don't think I wasn't. Really, I thought Kansas City was going to win the game from the beginning, and they did. But it was a close game. There was they really they really gave a scare to Kansas City. And
this is why I go Herbert third, though, because you're always looking for the guy who's got the big opportunity. He could be the quarterback in a big-time offense.
I will say, I think you guys kind of swing for the fences a little bit with some of these rookies like Tua and Herbert. I think I'll go back to what I said last week. A lot of people are just playing week to week with quarterback, and they're not getting too wedded. They're not looking for a guy that's going to be their starter for the whole season. They're looking for a guy that's going to be their starter in week 3. So I'm looking at guys like Mitch Trubisky because he's got the Falcons. You know, I told you last week I hate Mitch Trubisky, but it's a great matchup. He's got 5 touchdowns through the first 2 weeks. They're 2-0, so he's not going to get benched. He's not going to get benched. He puts up the numbers. He runs too, you know. And then my other guys I'm looking at are Phillip Rivers and Baker Mayfield, just because they're playing against defenses that are pass funnel defenses, which means they've got great run stoppers and terrible secondaries. So the way to beat the Jets and Washington is through the air. So those guys are probably going to have their best statistical games of the season.
Yeah, Baker was my third just because of the matchup. Also, I'm not I liked Herbert a lot. He's my fourth, just because I think if you take him, you bench him, he may not play for the few games, but I think by week 6 or 7 he'll be the starting quarterback.
So who's your 3? I think we're missing your 3 then. Oh no, did you say Baker's third?
Yeah, Bridgewater. We got Teddy. We got Baker's third, and one was Gardner.
See, I'm not in on Bridgewater. Partly because of McCaffrey, but I don't know if he would have made my top 5 because
he's just sort of a conservative quarterback too. You know, he does. I mean, the thing is, they do have a terrible defense, and now they're not going to be able to run the ball either. So he's going to have to throw, but I think he's going outside his comfort zone on that.
He's going to have to throw, and remember this waiver wire thing with the quarterbacks. This isn't like your answer to start these guys every week. This is like a let's say you have Garoppolo and Garoppolo's not playing this week. This is more of a Band-Aid situation.
Right, but you're always building your team. You're looking for the best.
I know, and I think
no, I'm agreeing with you.
I mean, I think Gardner's going to be available in a lot of leagues. I think Bridgewater will be available, and they're both way under 50%.
Minshew is not going to be available for long. You got to get him this week.
No, this is the week you got to get him.
Tannehill also.
Yeah.
Tannehill's like
Herbert also.
Herbert.
Let's see.
Any of those guys. I mean, just remember. If you're picking one of those quarterbacks, you're probably dropping a quarterback. So it'll be interesting to see who you drop.
That's true. I have Tua fourth. I said he was my
I love
top
Tua.
pick last time. He's got the most upside, but he is on the Dolphins.
Let me ask you guys a question. I was thinking about this. I was watching the Eagles-Rams game over the weekend, some of it, and I saw Hurts out there, and he came in for a couple plays. How long will the Eagles go with Wentz until they put in Hurts? I mean, do you think?
I think Hurts is going to end up playing at some point. I really do. What do
I
you
agree.
think, Andrew?
I still think Wentz is going to be fine. I just think that they're still figuring things out there. I think Goddard is sort of overtaking Ertz there a little bit, and their receivers. Jalen Reagor was hurt at the beginning of the year. Deshaun Jackson hasn't broken that big play yet. He's had a lot of targets, but he hasn't really had that big play yet. I think they're going to be okay. And Wentz is, he's just entering his prime as an NFL quarterback, and I don't think Hurts is part of, he's not going to get that job.
I mean, I just remember Hurts in college, and he's like Murray. I mean, he runs, he's bigger than Murray, and he's just as fast.
It was a curious pick. I don't really understand what they were thinking using draft capital on him when they've got Wentz, but
I don't either.
We'll see what they have planned.
We'll see what happens.
Certainly wouldn't have given Wentz a ton of confidence, I would think. Okay, guys, let's move on to running back because there's a lot of things that need to happen at running back. There's a lot of people whose rosters are hurting. McCaffrey's out 4 to 6 weeks. Saquon Barkley done for the year. There's all kinds of things shifting around. We got the Rams situation is all over the place. Ross, let's start with you again. Who's your top 2? We're gonna go with your top 2.
This is tough. There's a lot of stuff going on.
All right, we'll just take one. Just one.
Okay. So there's Davis for Carolina, who's going to be their starting running back, and he does. He had 1 yard for 1 rush last game, but he caught a bunch of passes. He had like a lot of yards receiving.
That by the way is called a Peyton Barber week 2.
Yeah, but I
One
like
rush, 1
Davis.
yard.
I like Davis for
Told you.
Carolina. I in New York. I know they're bringing Freeman in to talk to the team. And remember, Freeman in 2015, 2016, he had 1,000 yards each year. I mean, he's been hurt. He hasn't played in a while, which is good for a running back. I like Freeman also. I think he'll sign with the Giants, and I think he'll be their starting running back. And I see him having a big year. So you got to take chances in fantasy. You got to take chances in fantasy football. Freeman's my chance this year. I think he'll bounce back and have a huge year. He's a unbelievable running back when he's healthy. And
All right. So wait, who were your top two?
Davis and Freeman. Davis for
Freeman. Okay.
Davis for Carolina. Freeman for the Giants.
Yeah.
Andrew, how about you?
Okay, well, I do have Devontae Freeman on my list. I don't have him quite that high, but I think he's a great opportunity, I guess, as a fantasy manager, because if your waivers process before he signs, you're probably not going to have to spend a whole ton of fab to get him. Whereas some of these other guys that had a big week last week, you're going to have to spend a lot of money or a high waiver priority bid to get them on your team. So it's good to be a step ahead of the game. And, picking up Devontae Freeman is being a step ahead of the game. So I like that move. I got Joshua Kelly, number one. We already talked about him. And Mike Davis did make my number two. I think he's sort of a good if you're hurting at the position and you need to get a warm body in there, he's going to give you a decent floor because that's just part of their offense is those dump off passes. And even though he's not going to be able to do nearly as much with those as Christian McCaffrey does, he's still going to catch 6-8 balls in a game or something like that. And especially in a PPR league, that's got value. And then the guy I'm really interested in too is Jerick McKinnon with the 49ers. It's come out that Raheem Mostert's unlikely to play next week, and Tevin Coleman could be out for a while, actually, with his injury. So that has really opened the door for McKinnon. I don't think he's going to be like a bell cow because they're trying to keep him healthy. So I think he'll get like the high value touches, and Shanahan knows how to scheme players to maximize their fantasy value and their real life value.
Yeah, but
so
remember,
I like his
the
potential.
one thing you forgot to say is this is a total Band-Aid pickup. It's going to be like a 1 week pickup, and then
we'll see. It's
and then the
unclear.
starters
Mostert's
back.
got an MCL injury that I own.
They said
I own
1
him
week.
in one of my leagues, so I'm hoping it's not too serious. But those MCL injuries can last a few weeks, even a month.
Well, I also wanted to say if you've got an opportunity to pounce on a running back that could run away with things for a while on a really good team, that's worth a claim.
And
McKinnon is definitely. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, and the 49ers are a good enough team that they're a good enough offense, running game at least, that they're capable of supporting two running backs. So even when Mostert comes back,
easily,
if McKinnon's the pass catching back in that offense, that's going to have value on its own as a standalone.
That's huge. Okay, so I have somebody at my number two who I don't even know if he's on your list, but
Who is it?
I am swinging for the fences a lot of the time on some of these pickups. Joshua Kelly's my number one, and Ross, you didn't mention him as your number one.
Yeah,
so
but we
where
mentioned
are you
the reason I did not mention Joshua Kelly this week because we talked about him so much last week. I didn't really want to hear his name this week.
Yeah.
But you guys have to bring
understand.
him up. Have to bring him up again.
I know.
Well, just
we
until
talked
he gets
about him.
50% owned, and then we'll shut up.
This
All right,
week,
listen.
this last week in NFL football was the worst injuries of major names like I've ever heard in my life. I mean, and so we got to think. Being an owner, you got to think who's taking McCaffrey's spot.
Yeah, it's definitely all worth talking about. But when guys like Kelly are there, sometimes the best option is just staring you right in the face.
We talked about
right?
Kelly. Everybody listen to me.
Let's hear Dan's.
No, this
let's
is
hear
going to be
Dan's
great.
other guy.
This is going to be great.
I think I know who you're going to say.
I am very interested to see if you do know. But Ross's rant on Saturday is clearly going to be about how we talk about Joshua Kelly too much, or the fact that Chewbacca lost. I don't know which, but it's going to be one of the two, or maybe both. Okay, my number two is Darrell Henderson.
Oh, okay.
Was that
That's
the
a good
guy?
one. No, I did read.
I got another guy I want to talk about then.
I did read about
Okay.
the Rams. The Rams are going to use Darrell Henderson a lot this coming week. I read about that.
And he was explosive. When you see that kind of explosion on that kind of offense, everybody else is dinged up. He could run away with the job. He could be a difference maker in your league. That is why I have him above these other guys. These other guys could be good. They could provide some value. But Darrell Henderson, other than Joshua Kelly, is the only guy on here. Devontae Freeman is the other guy. who can really make a difference. But Devontae Freeman's going to end up on the Giants, I think.
I think McKinnon.
I do have him third.
Too. I mean,
that's true.
The 49ers
McKinnon
situation
is the other one.
is just as appealing, and I think
No,
he's
you're
got
right.
a better path to touches because it came out tonight actually that Cam Akers and Malcolm Brown are both trending towards being available this coming week. So that makes that really dicey. The Rams. I understand what you're saying because whoever's getting the touches in that offense, you want them. I just think that when they're all available, I think Henderson is still probably going to be third in line. I think that McVay views him more as like a pass catching back, which isn't quite as productive a role in the Rams offense as it is in the 49ers offense.
Well, that might be, but you also have to keep in mind, if you own one of the 3 Rams running backs, they're going to be valuable on a lot of weeks.
Oh, he should absolutely be picked up. I agree with you. He made my list. He's just I'm moving him down a little bit based on the news about Akers. I still think that's going to be Akers' job eventually. And in the short term, if Malcolm Brown's healthy, he's getting those goal line carries, and he's just going to get his 10 to 15 carries in that offense. So I think it's kind of a mess there right now if you got the 3-headed monster there. But the guy I thought you were going to mention is Myles Gaskin with the Dolphins. He's
my number 4.
I had him on my list last week. I just didn't get a chance to mention him, but because he actually led the Dolphins in touches in that backfield last week too, and he did it again this week. I think he's the only running back in that backfield that they really feel has that multi-dimensional ability where they can.
Yeah, you don't want a Miami Dolphin on your team.
Hold on.
He's a young guy. He ran for over 5,000 yards in college and 57 touchdowns.
One thing you have to keep in mind is that Andrew will pick up Myles Gaskin, and he'll trade somebody else and play Myles Gaskin, or even worse, he'll trade Myles Gaskin. He'll get somebody to buy into that. But I will say this. Myles Gaskin is like a garbage time NBA player, except it's always garbage time in Miami. So you can be
he's got value. I mean, the Dolphins are not they're not the Jets, okay? They're not a great team, but they can give you fantasy production. And the guy that's getting not only leading the team in carries, but also is the clear passing down back. I mean, he's going to get 15 touches every week, and that has value on a team like the Dolphins.
And not only that, but he's going to be getting passes from Tua in like a couple weeks.
and we don't know how
keep riding this.
I know, and we don't know how good Gaskin is. He might be really good. He's a second-year player. He's getting his first taste of the NFL, his first opportunities. He's been good so far. He's been productive as a pass catcher and a runner. I mean, that's all you can ask for.
I've seen him play. He's fine. He's not going to win you any leagues. He'll be a good running back, a third running back if you have a 3.
Well, that's a valuable pickup league. If you can have that.
I mean,
that's why I have him 4th. I actually think I have him above Mike Davis.
Really?
I mean, to me,
I do.
Gaskin is this.
I'll tell you why.
Gaskin is this week's version of James Robinson. You know, I was beating the drum for James Robinson a couple weeks ago, and nobody in the fantasy industry was really taking him seriously. But a guy that's getting that kind of workload, it doesn't matter if it's Jacksonville. It's valuable.
Well, Jacksonville also has a better offense than the Dolphins, but the reason I have Gaskin ahead of Davis is I think they're fairly similar players, except Davis gets injured more often. He's never had good yards per carry. Gaskin at least has the role. Davis, we don't know how long he's going to keep it. That's why I have Gaskin ahead.
I think
of
Davis.
I really think Howard's going to start getting some carries in Miami.
I could totally see it.
I don't know why. I don't know why he's not playing. I don't know why he's not getting the ball. I think no idea.
Because he's a terrible pass catcher and he can't play in whenever they have to run a fast-paced offense where they need a guy that can carry the ball or catch it. It's like when Jordan Howard comes in the game, you know exactly what they're going to do, and that's honestly not very effective in the NFL today.
I was going to say, actually, Jordan Howard. Now we have so many people who aren't going to come on the show now after this.
Yeah, well,
we just keep insulting people. Wait, Ross, tell me one last thing on running back, and we're going to move to wide receivers. Dion Lewis, what do we make of him? Devontae Freeman it's not a foregone conclusion he's going to the Giants. What do you think about
Dion Lewis? You have to pick him up. I mean, Dion Lewis is somebody that if you have a shot to pick him up, and if you've got to see what happens with Freeman. If he signs with the Giants, then Dion Lewis's role becomes really minor. But if he doesn't sign, Dion Lewis is going to be, he'll be in there like 60% of the 70% of the snaps. I mean,
I totally agree.
I mean, Dion Lewis, another guy we didn't talk about because he plays in a very small market, and we kind of make fun of the team more than anything, is the Detroit Lions. and I saw him play over the weekend, is Kerryon Johnson. And,
yeah, he's one of these like post-hype sleepers where it's
and
like
if you need a running
still
back,
got
if
value.
one of these running backs got hurt that on your team and you need somebody, he's not a bad pickup. I was thinking about that.
I agree.
I mean, I don't think it's a bad pickup for you to get Kerryon Johnson. I feel he's going to get more carries, and I feel he'll probably have a touchdown or two in some of these games, because Detroit, as much as we think they're horrible, they do score points. They do have, their quarterback does like to throw the ball.
They are a football team. Okay, guys, we're going to talk about wide receivers now, and I'm going to start us off because I've got one that, to me, is head and shoulders above anybody else who isn't owned in 50% of Yahoo leagues. To me, that's Russell Gage, the Atlanta Falcons' third receiver. I was all over him last week, but now it's a must. This is your last call on him. You guys agree with that?
I love Russell Gage. I talked about him last week. Jones is hurt. Just so you know, their number one receiver. Gage catches anything near him. He catches. He's unbelievable. He's not my number one, but he is my number two. My number one actually graduated from the same college I did, and he was the Patriots' number one draft pick last year. Is Khalil Harry, and for me, I think he's roughly the number one receiver now in New England. And Cam Newton and him have a great connection. Harry would be the guy I would take number one right now in the waiver wire if you're looking for a wide receiver. That's coming from Ross the Boss. And you got to listen to me more than anybody else on this show, obviously.
I mean,
because
he is the boss. What
I know
are
what
we
I'm
gonna
doing.
do?
Yeah, exactly. But Harry for me is one. Two is Gage.
Well,
all right, now
I'll reveal more a little later when somebody says who they like one and two.
It's a slow tease.
I guess I have to be the hater on Russell Gage again. My view on him hasn't really changed a lot since last week. I still think, I think he's a fine player to pick up. And in weeks where they have these wild, crazy shootouts like they had this last week, and they will have those fairly often, he can get some points. But I still think he might be the fourth option in that passing game when all is said and done. So I don't think he's going to be consistent from week to week. The guy, I did the same thing last week. I tend to pick someone that just people forget about at wide receiver. And my forgotten gem this week is Golden Tate with the Giants because he is a perennial 1,000-yard receiver. Sterling Shepard has turf toe and is probably going to be out for a while. And they need another receiver to throw the ball to. The Giants have actually attempted a higher percentage of passes than any other team in the NFL. And with Saquon out and that awful defense, that's not changing anytime soon. So, even though Daniel Jones makes a lot of head-scratching mistakes, he also can put up some serious fantasy production. And I think Golden Tate is going to be one of the big beneficiaries of that. So, I think he's one of those players people just kind of forgot about. He slipped under 50% owned. He'd never be less than 50% owned if he had been healthy from the start of the season. So he's my number one choice.
Or if he were on a different team, but not the Jets. I'm sorry, Jets fans.
But he's produced with the Giants. He was average. He was on a 1,000-yard pace last year on a per-game basis.
True. All right, now Ross, I want to hear from you about the Packers receivers. Devontae Adams obviously is owned everywhere, as he should be. First-round pick. But the other two guys, Valdez-Scantling and Lazard, where do you have them ranked? Who do you like more?
I like Lazard better. I mean, I don't like really either of those guys. I just feel like they'll get just 50, 60 yards, and I don't feel they'll probably score a touchdown. I think Aaron Jones is just a monster. He catches, he runs. I don't feel comfortable.
All their production.
I don't feel comfortable with any of those two receivers. I would not take any of them. I would take Devontae, and I would take Aaron Jones, and I would take Aaron Rodgers this year. He's playing great.
Well, maybe you should deal Lamar Jackson for Devontae.
Well, you go. He got banged up a little bit. He didn't have the greatest stats, but it's not a bad time to pick him up, actually.
Well, and if Devontae had been out this coming week, then I think those other two Packer receivers would have been a lot more interesting. But it does sound like Devontae Adams is going to be fine for week 3. I said last week, and I'll stick to it, I'll take MVS over Lazard just because I think he's got the big play potential. I don't think Lazard's going to score a touchdown very often, but I think MVS actually can because Rodgers likes to throw deep to him down the sideline, and he'll even come back to him after MVS has one of his patented drops. I have him in my Dynasty League, and I've been waiting for his breakout for 2 years, and he teases, and then he makes this bad mistake, and I get so worried that Rodgers is going to turn on him and stop throwing to him, but he doesn't, because he knows that he brings a dynamic to that offense that none of their other guys do, that deep down the field, big play role in that offense. And if Aaron Rodgers actually does manage to put together a vintage Rodgers season, which I'm not entirely sold on. I tweeted something about this during the week. The angry Rodgers narrative, I think, is a little bit overblown, because if you look at the statistics last year, he was very aggressive downfield. He just didn't have the weapons and the scheme to make it work. So far this year it has, but the matchups have played a role there, I think. So we'll have to see how powerful that fantasy offense is. But if Rodgers is indeed having one of his better seasons, then I think MVS could really have a nice breakout.
And let me give you my number 3. I love this kid. He's from Notre Dame. He's playing in Pittsburgh right now. He is he had a touchdown, actually, great catch to score a touchdown, and that's Chase Claypool. Chase is somebody that's a huge sleeper pick. I mean, I don't know what kind of stats he'll do the whole year, but he could be like 100-yard, 1 touchdown guy. I mean,
I like him in Dynasty. I just wonder about the snap count.
Yeah,
he's not playing very much.
They're
playing him more.
A lot of his stats. That's true. I mean, he could be on the upswing, and he's on a good team with a great quarterback. I mean, a lot of his stats last week were an 84-yard touchdown pass, so it's hard to know, but.
I love that kid. And another guy I like is from Jacksonville. I love Gardner, but I love Keenan Cole. I feel
I was thinking of a different
I feel
Jaguar.
Keenan Cole could have a breakout year. I think he could maybe get 1,000. I think he could have 1,000 yards. I mean, I'm that positive about this kid.
They both make my top 10, both of these Jags receivers, but I have Shenault higher, and the reason is I think that they actually scheme him into the game plan, so he's going to have a very high floor for a wide receiver. That's the thing about wide receivers compared to running backs. It's the reason that people always rush to take running backs first, is because they get that guaranteed touches every single game. Even the best wide receivers.
Handoffs.
Yeah, he's getting like 5 carries a game, plus 5 catches a game, and that's the kind of production that he's never going to really have a bad week when he's getting involved that way. He sort of reminds me of Percy Harvin a little bit when he was in his prime, that you really game plan around the guy and make sure they get their touches each and every week. So there's some hidden value in that, and he hasn't had that full breakout yet, so I think he's still a little bit under the radar.
Anybody want the last word on wide receiver before we move to tight end?
Well, we should mention Corey Davis. I mean, we were talking about Tannehill, right? I mean, as long as A.J. Brown is out, and it's going to be for a few weeks, it sounds like, I think Corey Davis is absolutely in play.
The injuries were just massive this week.
Let me ask you guys a question, because I don't know the answer. And I see he's available in like 99% leagues, and he's definitely like a top 5 receiver if he was playing, is Antonio Brown. What is his status? Can he sign with the team and play this year? Is he banned from the league? What's going? Does anybody know what his status is, and can he actually put a uniform on and play for a team that needs a receiver?
If anybody knows his status, it's going to be Andrew. So tell us. You know anything?
But he can sign with the team now. There was actually some rumors floating around in the preseason that the Seahawks were maybe going to make a move for him. But they I guess Russell Wilson was pushing for it. They ended up bringing in Josh Gordon again instead, and he hasn't been on the active roster yet. But they've got him stashed away if they decide they want to, go with an enigmatic big play talent at wide receiver. They kind of took this, I guess, somewhat safer route PR wise, and went with Josh Gordon instead of.
He's not safer, Brown. Josh Gordon. Wasn't he?
He's safe. He's safer in terms of his bad actions are more. He can't. People sympathize with him a little bit. He can't get his head on straight. Whereas Antonio Brown's just a bad dude. I mean, come on.
They're both safe. They're going to give you 0 points. That's
right.
There you go.
Yeah, I agree. Neither of them are pickups.
No, I was just thinking, like, if I have a team and if Antonio Brown signs with a team, he's going to be the number 1 receiver wherever he signs. I mean, he's going.
I'm in a dynasty league with 30-man rosters. He's owned there. Okay, so
but listen,
if it's deep
most
enough,
people don't have a 30-man roster.
Here's what you do. You cut your kicker, and you pick up Antonio Brown, and you just hold him until Sunday morning. See if he gets signed.
Do that with Devonta Freeman. That's the move.
Well, either way.
Well, Devonta Freeman, we're going to know by tomorrow before the waiver wire happens. So you'll be able to know what's going on with him by tomorrow.
That's possible, but
Might be Wednesday.
Use your kicker
tomorrow,
spot. Use
Tuesday.
your kicker spot if you're not sure what to do. Okay, guys, on to tight end. Tight end is always hard to find value on the wire, I find. I mean, you can get him, but especially early in the season, you can get him. So who's there right now that you think can provide real value going forward? Andrew, we'll start with you.
Well, I got to go with Dalton Schultz with the Cowboys. I think that he may be having the breakout that people thought that Blake Jarwin was going to have this season. I just want any part of that Cowboys offense that I can get. I think it's going to be explosive for fantasy production. They envisioned getting the tight end highly involved in that offense this year, and it looks like Dalton Schultz. And, no one really knew who he was a couple weeks ago, but he had a big game last week. And I think that, and he played well. I watched that game among the 8 games I was watching simultaneously, and I think that he can make plays. And that's when you're getting the ball from Dak Prescott. That's got serious value. So with tight ends, I really like to pick one that's got a good role and a good offense, and I think he fits the bill. It doesn't matter if he came out of nowhere.
A guy named Dalton playing for the Cowboys is like, you can't go wrong. I mean, think about it. A guy, your first name's Dalton.
Yeah.
You're playing.
You got Andy Dalton.
You got Andy Dalton. You got Dalton Schultz. I mean, and again, Dalton Schultz.
Timothy Dalton of 007.
Exactly. You got all these great Daltons, but just the name Dalton, you always think of a guy from Texas wearing a cowboy hat. Hey, what's your name? Hey, my name's Dalton. Yeah. My name's Dalton.
All right, now,
okay. But tight end this week, I love the Colts tight end that what's his name? Andrew, what's the Colts?
Mo Alley Cox, you mean?
Mo Alley Cox. I can remember.
Oh, yeah, I have him number 5.
I like Mo Alley Cox. I also like the Bengals tight end got hurt, who I have on my team, but he scored already a touchdown, so it was good. But they brought Sample in, and Sample had a lot of passes thrown to him during the time he was in.
Well, and this brings up a point. The system they're in and the quarterback they're linked to often is what really matters. You can often plug the next guy in, and they're pretty good. And that's what I'm looking for. Eric Ebron, I think, is still under 50%.
Yeah, he's my number 2 pick.
I know he hasn't performed. But he scored 13 touchdowns two years ago.
And Roethlisberger looks great, so it's only a matter of time.
I love him too.
Use their tight ends.
I love Drew Sample. I love I like the Bengals. I mean, the Bengals quarterback threw 63 passes last week. I mean, Burrow. I mean,
wasn't the most efficient performance, but he did get over 300 yards.
He had 40 completions, which is still fine. So I think Drew Sample's going to go in there and he'll get a lot of targets. I mean,
I've got a bid in for him in my dynasty league. He made the outskirts of my top 5. But in dynasty I'm interested because he's a very interesting player because they took him in the second round and he wasn't graded as a second round player by most teams in the NFL. So I think a lot of people in the fantasy community have kind of dismissed him and been like, oh, that's just the Bengals being the Bengals again. But they clearly see something in him. And like you said, I mean, with Uzomah out for the season, he's just going to get that opportunity. Sometimes that rookie to rookie connection can really be a factor. So I think Burrow, he doesn't have this existing rapport with anyone. So he's building these relationships from scratch. So why not Sample, and I think he's going to get that 5 to 7 targets each week. So he can provide a solid floor at least.
Ross, who's a guy who can provide some value that nobody's really talking about?
At tight end right now? I mean, I brought up Sample. I mean,
that was a great example, but do you have another?
I can give you one.
Give me one.
Yeah, well, so I think everyone's going to go chasing Jordan Reed because of his stats he put up last week and because he used to be great. But the problem is we don't really know how long Kittle is going to be out there in San Francisco. And then also if Garoppolo is out, it's kind of unclear right now what his status is, but that takes a lot of the appeal out of there. So I'll go to the team that Reed made his name with, and that's Washington. Logan Thomas has been getting tons of targets.
I got him at number 2.
He's just become an integral part of that offense. And, he doesn't have a ton of upside, so he's not the most exciting pickup. But I mean, if you're just looking for a guy that's going to get you some solid production and not put a zero for you, I think he's going to get at least 4 or 5 points every week.
Let me make another point about that, why I think he has value. Some of that is Terry McLaurin. When you've got a receiver like that who's just eating up defenses, it opens up space for the tight end. So that's one reason I think it's actually for real that Logan Thomas can provide some actual value. I don't know what you guys think about that argument, but I happen to be right. So I suggest you just agree, and we agree to move on.
Yeah, but if you're starting Logan Thomas on your fantasy team, I love to see other players that are on your team. I mean, you must be in desperate need.
And let's be clear, I do think there are some tight ends that are more than 50% owned that are available sometimes in fantasy leagues. Like I'm in one of my leagues, Mike Gesicki's out on the waiver wire, So if Mike Gesicki's out there, go for that guy.
He's down to 63% or something.
Yeah, and I mean he had a huge week, and he's a big part of their offense. So they really want to get him involved in a big way. So. He's the kind of guy that could end up being a top 5 tight end by the end of the season.
Where's Juno Smith, the guy for Tennessee? What's his percentage?
Yeah, he's over 50 now.
Is he over 50?
Yeah, I don't think he was last week, but I think he
wasn't
is now. Yeah,
but I mean, I like him.
All the free agent leagues where they can just add right away.
Yeah.
As soon as he scored those touchdowns, he got added.
That's what I thought. I mean, I liked him. I liked him last week. I mean, the big pickup in tight end this week, and I have him. I drafted him. Is a tight end for the Rams who had 3 touchdowns.
Tyler Higbee.
Tyler Higbee. I mean, he was unbelievable. He won me my league. I mean, I was winning my league today, and I was starting Drew Brees and Lutz, and the other guy was done. I was still beating him.
I love Ross's enthusiasm. He wins one week and he won the league. This is the way that guy rolls.
That's the way I roll. So,
but
I mean, Higbee is huge. I mean, some of the disappointments is Ertz is a huge disappointment this year at tight end. I feel. I mean,
they're going to let him walk. By the way, he's that's part of the reason I think that Goddard is overtaking him is Ertz's contract. The extension
so they
talks
start
have
working
just
him
died
in.
out. Yeah, I think
and that means they want to start working Goddard in right away. Which
and
means
there's bad feelings there on both sides. I think, and that kind of can bleed over onto the field. Yeah.
And you know what? It could be a great week to try to trade for Kittle. People are pissed that the guy didn't play. And they're angry that he did not play this week. And you know what? When players don't play, and it's a minor injury, which he has, it's a good time to hit up, one of the managers and try to get Kittle. It's a good time.
Ross the boss loves to pounce on this. Yep.
I'm going to make some offers for Kittle this week. We'll see what happens. I'll try to trade Higbee for Kittle, and I'll throw in somebody else and see what happens. How about that?
Oh, that's
keep us
genius.
posted.
That's genius. Just don't send it to us because we'll reject it. Okay, now we're on to defenses. We didn't get to defense the last time. We need to give some streaming options. To me, there's one that is owned less than 50% in Yahoo, is much more appealing than the others to me.
Who is it?
Actually, I'd say there's 2. So Indianapolis is playing the Jets. I mean, this is, if you're not sure where to go, and look, the Jets maybe they'll put up some points and Indianapolis will disappoint, but it's a good chance to pick up a lot of points, I think.
Not only are they playing the Jets, if you look ahead a little bit, they got the Bears, they got the Browns, and they got the Bengals the 3 games after that. So that's really going to be a defense you can pick up and actually.
How dare you badmouth the Bengals? First of all, the Bengals are going to score 30 points against the Colts.
I'm a Browns fan, so I badmouth them too.
How dare you?
I mean, also remember the Colts have Chucky Wakori in 2003, and we interviewed him. So don't forget that's going to power this team.
I think you're 100% right.
Ahead,
I think anybody who plays the Jets, you take the defense. The Jets and the
look what they did to Minnesota last
play.
week too. My God, they just completely dominated the Vikings last week. So the Colts are riding high right now.
I agree.
Yeah, and sometimes you get a hot team. The Chargers are another team that I think now, especially now that McCaffrey's out, the Chargers become a much more viable play. They already have a very good defense. I have them number 2. How about you, Andrew?
Yeah, I actually put them number 3 only because it depends on your format. But sometimes if there's a lot of competition for streaming defenses, I like to pick up a defense that has good matchups for multiple weeks instead of just 1 week. The Chargers have a phenomenal matchup this week against the McCaffrey-less Panthers. So I think they're one of the top plays of the week. It's just after that they got some tough matchups coming up. So you're going to have to go back to the wire and find another defense after that.
The Chargers are my number 2 pick.
They're my number 3. My number 2 is Tampa Bay, which also has a much improved defense this year. They get Denver, who's going to be starting Jeff Driscoll at quarterback. So anytime you can get a defense going against the quarterback thrown into the fire like that, not that Drew Lock was lighting anything up either, but and Courtland Sutton, their star receivers, out for the season. Speaking of the bloodbath of injuries, so I think that's a really favorable matchup for the Tampa Bay defense. And then they have some more good matchups coming up down the road. I'd have to look at the specifics, but so that's why they made my number 2.
So my number 1 is I'm taking Arizona. They play the Lions. I feel Arizona's like we were talking about it last week. Who's the Tennessee of this year? And I feel it's Arizona. They're 2-0. Murray, I don't know if you saw that run he did. It was like a video game. I mean, he basically ran 20 yards for a touchdown, not even touched by anybody on the other team. I mean, he's unbelievable, and they definitely have the best receiver in the league right now. And in their running game on Drake is fine. I mean, Drake's somebody that's solid.
And Chase Edmonds, if he gets a chance, would be awesome too.
Chase Edmonds is good too. But their defense is playing great. And they have some.
Well, and if they build a big lead, then those cornerbacks can start taking chances for pick sixes and all kinds of stuff.
And they're playing the Lions, and the Lions, as we discussed, they have no offensive line.
The key word is disgust.
They will get Galladay back this week, but I'm currently rostering the Cardinals defense in 2 leagues, and I'm definitely going to just stick with them in at least one of them and roll them against that Lions team.
And
then
I
they
really
have
don't
some good matchups after that too.
Yeah, I don't see Herman Moore coming back for the Lions anytime soon.
How about Megatron?
I love Megatron. He was so good.
Oh my God,
he was the best. But what I'm saying is this: Arizona's available in like 80% of the league. So pick up Arizona this week. If you're one of these guys that go week by defenses, this is the week you pick up Arizona's defense. I feel they'll have a huge week with sacks and interceptions. And we'll see if Ross.
I think they're an underrated defense. Now we're going to do the dreaded kicker conversation.
Now let me just tell you something. Let me tell you about something about kickers. You should have your kicker locked in. I mean, the reason you get another kickers during the bye week. I mean, it's so hard to predict kickers, but I did make a little
one of the reasons.
list.
That's one of the reasons. That's one of. Oh, you do. All right, hold on. I want to hear that.
Oh, I want to hear this.
Wait, hold on. I have to make one point first.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, the point that I want to make is if you want to lock in your kicker, because if you keep rotating, you're going to keep missing it. You're going to keep missing over and over. Just stick with one.
That's what I do. I stick with one.
Here's how I approach kicker. And
I have
by the way,
that's why I have already had 3.
Among 160 fantasy industry writers last season, I was in the top 8 for kicker accuracy in my predictions on Fantasy Pros.
All right, guys. So everybody pay attention.
So it's actually, here's how I approach kicker, and I think this is how everyone should do it, but almost nobody does. Use that roster space during the week to your advantage. Cut your kicker, pick up a guy like Devontae Freeman, who the news could break, and that he has all this value, and then you just hit the lottery, and then you cut somebody else instead to pick up a kicker.
Okay, well, I totally agree with that.
I totally disagree.
Hey, time out. Or you pick out. Let me give my full theory, and then you can refute it. And then, if a guy like Devontae Freeman's not available, pick up a backup running back from the Thursday night game, and see if one of the starters gets injured. Then all of a sudden, you got a stud. So that's the other thing you do. And then after the Thursday game, drop your kicker, pick up a kicker from a team that's playing A at home, B is a heavy favorite to win. And C doesn't have any disastrous weather that they have to deal with or anything like that, like high winds especially. And if you just do that, look at, when I pick kickers, I don't look at last week's stats for kickers. I look at the spread. That's what I look at. I look at the over-under, and I look at the line. How much is that team favored?
So you want them favored and at home, and no weather disasters.
Yes.
I'm taking notes. You've just sold me on it, and I already was ready to use my kicker spot.
But by the way, that's not going to work every single time. You can't kick yourself, Dan. If you get it wrong one week, it's going to happen. But you'll get it right more often than not, more than 50%. And the reality is, kickers are so random anyway. that it's not worth devoting a roster space during the week to a kicker when there's all this value floating around during the week. News breaks during the week. Guys that didn't look like they got hurt on Sunday, it turns out on Wednesday you find out that they had an injury, and all of a sudden there's the backup's valuable, or a guy signs off from a free agent signs like Freeman. So you gotta take full advantage of your bench spots, and that's not being
Ross the Boss disagrees 1,000%. If you have a top 5 kicker, you start him every week. If you have
that's
a
why I don't
Lutz,
draft
if
Justin
you have a
Tucker in the 11th round,
if you have Greg the Leg,
it.
if you have one of these top 5, top 6, 7 kickers, you play him every week.
Yeah, if I had Justin Tucker or Harrison Butker, I would be worried about cutting them, which is just another reason not to waste a 10th, 11th round pick on a kicker when you can actually get somebody good in the draft. That's not a good use of the draft.
Yeah, you just sounded like Dr. Seuss there. I just want to say that.
I picked Zane Gonzalez in the last round as my kicker because I knew he'd be available, and I knew he would have a big year for Arizona, and he's going to have a huge year for Arizona because he also went to a great college too. So
listen, I think you can win both ways.
Well, you stick with the same kicker.
This is amazing. The most spirited debate of the entire evening was over kickers.
Well, usually the spirited debate about kickers is whether you should even have them or not, and I really like having them because I think
now
it's
that
fun
I know
to
the
watch
secret,
the games.
I'll be fine with it.
Well, it's also fun to watch the games live and root for your kicker. It just gives you one more thing to root for, and that's what I'm in this for.
That's true, and the kickers need rooting. Okay, guys, remember, everybody, leagues are often won and lost on the wire. You heard it here. What you guys should be doing. We even have your back on kickers now.
Should we tell them who we want to pick up?
And maybe Ross. Oh, yeah, we should. We didn't even do that, did we? Oh, my God. We just debated. I loved it. We debated the strategy of kickers. Okay. I have as my number one guy Myers against Dallas. I just think it's going to be a shootout.
Myers is always a solid option. I don't know.
He's at home. I don't think there's bad weather. So,
The guy I want is the guy I wanted to get last week, and I talked myself out of it the last second, which is Rodrigo Blankenship from the aforementioned Colts.
I love that name. I love that name.
Yeah,
I don't have him in my top 5, but I love him.
He was a great college kicker.
He was great. Georgia, right?
And he kicked 4 field goals last week, too. And the Colts are rolling. They should be in a good position in that game. Jake Elliott with the Eagles, I think, could be decent this week. But yeah, again, look at the.
I love Bagley for the Chargers.
Yep, that's a good one this week.
I love Bagley I know he's over 50%, but I'll say his name anyway just because he went to the best college in the country, is Zane Gonzalez. I love him this year. I think he'll be all pro. You heard it from me first. I also love Mason Crosby too for Green Bay. They I forgot who they play this week, but I know it's
New Orleans.
New Orleans.
It's New Orleans. I have him in my top 3.
I like him also this week, and he's like 20% of the leagues he's in or something like that. So, but I like Bagley for the Chargers a lot this week.
Yep.
I think
I often find myself picking up the Chargers kicker over the years. It's just generally been a productive under the radar team for kicking.
And they usually have good weather also. All right. Well, I don't know. California's not having the best weather lately, but
yeah, they didn't factor in climate change, I guess.
I don't know how that's going to, but listen, guys, as I said, leagues are often won and lost on the wire. We've given you the gold. Go get it. Come click subscribe, watch the show, tell all your friends, click the bell for notifications, and keep on watching. Go get them, fantasy monsters. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I'm Ross the Boss, and I love talking waiver wire with you, cowboy.
She asked if she could see who was under the blanket with me. I said, you don't want to find. It is Hideki Matsui in my